Yeah, I'm back once again. Right now, I'm about to react to this Tupac assassination, Battle for Compton, directed by R.J. Bond. You know, I'm a huge Tupac and Biggie fan, so I'm gonna just make that clear. I want a big shout out to everybody out there. I'm about to react to this video. You know, yeah. Thought I've been watching this documentary so many times, so I decided to, do some reaction to it. There's a lot of theories about what really happened to Tupac and all of this, but we're gonna get to the bottom of it, man. We're gonna separate the fact from fiction. No hearsay, no innuendo, none of it. We've been hearing these lies for over almost 30 years, man. Dealing with the murder rap documentary, which that I debunked. You know what I'm saying? And no, I don't believe that Pac lost his life over no shit that happened in Vegas. I believe it was a whole setup, it was a whole play, and that was that. That's just my opinion. All that other shit that just been thrown out there on the internet, saying who did this, who did that, man, nothing but lies, man. Big shout out to R.J. Bond for this documentary. He got another documentary, it's called Tupac Cover Up. I will be reacting to that, so let's get into it.
The police department, what do you think was the first priority on Eric Heritage's agenda? Restarting the Compton PD.
The whole notion of I am my brother's keeper doesn't exist over here. This is dog eat dog.
So what you have here is a real dilemma for the Compton Police Department, because it's sort of like a vice. On the one hand, you have the Operation Big Spender and the sheriffs and everybody that's surrounding the city of Compton being investigated for corruption as it relates to the drug trade. And on the other side of it, you have the Justice Department and the Drug Enforcement Agency coming down on death row records and looking at death row records for money laundering as it relates to drug sales. So where is in the middle? The Compton Police Department.
By the FBI and ATF about a year afterwards, while I was working with death row records in regards to racketeering within death row records, and also at that time, the mayor of Compton, Omar Bradley. There were some other things that occurred within the city. I didn't know that the FBI at that time was following Reggie, Show, the homeboys, and that's how things started out with the FBI.
He really was not that street person. He didn't understand the streets value.
At 24, Tupac Shakur was a platinum-selling artist, the movie star, and an inmate at the Dannemora jail in upstate New York.
By the time that Tupac Shakur had gone to prison, he had already shot 2 cops in the city of Atlanta. The charges were dropped against him, but he'd still shot cops. So he was no favorite with law enforcement.
That's just plain out period. Don't come to jail. I'm telling you straight up. Save the spot. It's dirty, it's filthy, it's like you an animal. This is not the spot. No man don't want to be here. No man or woman wants to be here.
Pac is now in Dannemora. Everybody's visiting him back and forth.
Before the Rikers, after the Rikers, Dannemora, after Dannemora, I mean, I visited him. I took a trip. One day I was like, I gotta go to New York and see Pac.
And I think also that Tupac got it in his mind that he needed someone to protect him. Now,
They bending down and touching your shoes. Here they are, your
I hate ass, man.
Airburst running shoes.
Shit's be annoying.
They're best. Plus, they come in hands-free Skechers slipping.
Fuck the community.
You'll go from zombie
Hey.
to
Skechers Airburst, scary fast.
trivia. A better way to speak. The no hidden fee cash up card.
I hate fucking ads, man. It's so stupid.
that again isn't true, that he needed someone to protect him, because Watani had a group of people, had always put a group of people around him to look out for him. the reason things happened to Tupac is Tupac would step outside of that group. If people put a group of people around you to look out for you, you need to stay inside that group. You don't need to step out and create new alliances with people that you don't know.
I got a phone call that Death Row had went to visit Tupac, and that I think he sided with Suge.
The whole kind of Death Row thing is Tupac wanted to go to Death Row. What he told me, face to face, as close as we were sitting, is I want to go to Death Row because I want to record with Dre and Snoop. He said to me, you can make the phone call, or I'll have someone make the phone call. And I think Watani and I were both there at Dannemora talking to him at the time and told him, you don't need to do that. There's no reason to do that. You're number one on the charts. Your record's outselling anybody at this particular time. All Death Row is Interscope. You don't need to go to Death Row.
Pop worked 24/7.
Because I knew he was going to end it. This was just a means. He had to get out of jail. And he wanted his mom to have a house. And he would do those 3 albums. And after those 3 albums were done, the house is paid for. What is he going to do? Because he had other ambitions.
At the time, Suge wasn't letting anyone work with Dre or Snoop unless they were part of Death Row.
In those months, in those last 9 months of his life, he had a kind of desperation that I talked about earlier. The only thing that mattered was to make a difference.
Thug life is like the 12th grade. Some people graduate from high school and don't seek to do anything else.
His lifestyle on video and on tape and even on song looked like a party. It wasn't a party, it wasn't a gangster party, it wasn't a party at all.
You have to remember, Tupac was out on bail, and the reason that he was rushing to get as many songs done as he could was because he wasn't sure that that bail wouldn't be revoked at some point, and that he may actually go back to prison.
Damn!
He was
Wow.
not a gangster.
What?
Not one day in his life, not even the day in the MGM when he stopped whoever the hell that was on the floor.
Over the next 280 days, Shakur records over 200 songs for future use. Wow, man. It's crazy. Pac was ahead of his time. Mind you, all this happened back in '96. I was no more than like 9 years old. But me growing up listening to Tupac was like, yo, like this guy is just deep, man. Like he got this, yo. This guy, you know what I'm saying? Like he was a revolutionary, man. And it's fucked up what happened. To this day, like, to this day it hasn't been solved, man. And I understand why it won't be solved. You know what I mean? From my perspective and what I watch and documentaries, you know what I'm saying? Besides that murder crap bullshit, like, no, we're not gonna do that. But let me just get into it.
I was in the limo, me and Tupac, Outlaw Bordos. We were driving around in Harlem, and the radio came on with Snoop Dogg saying that he had no beef with New York, which sent Pac into a rage.
And at that time, the artist, the height of that whole forefront was Snoop. How the fuck did that feel?
Because I am the LBC. I'm the king of Long Beach, nigga. I made it fashionable for niggas to bang the dub. I made a universal motherfucker. I'm the nigga that took the set around the whole globe.
23-year-old Calvin Broadus, aka Snoop Doggy Dogg, the man who made gangster rap mainstream, stands accused of murder.
Los Angeles police announced that 21-year-old Calvin Broadus, better known as rap star Snoop Doggy Dogg, had turned himself into police on Friday along with 2 other young black men, all accompanied by an attorney, in connection with the murder on August 25th of a man named Philip Waldemariam, and what police believe was a gang-related shooting.
We, the jury, in above and trial action, find the defendant, Calvin Broadus, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
Only if Daddy Kennedy.
Wait a minute. Key evidence in his case disappeared from the LAPD Pacific Division evidence locker. Man, when you think about LA, Cali, the whole nine, I think about the whole Rampart, these crooked cops, all of this shit, man. They were all involved in this shit. When you think about this shit, it's crazy, man. So, wow.
Just would have love for me on that level, just did it for me, just not for the paper, but just doing it for the love, because I know that's how he is about me. He's not concerned with the money issue, you know what I'm saying, and I knew that when he did his close life.
You know, we beat a murder trial for him, and then he was on probation. Then he got caught with 2 ounces of marijuana, and then he got caught with guns.
Free that man Suge, man.
Because for the street guys know what I'm talking about. It's no puzzle.
Nope.
I mean, if you get a guy that constantly getting in trouble and having to come to prison, that's because he's an informant. He's a rat, a snitch.
You know, it was Suge and his guys and Tupac and myself, and it was Snoop Dogg and Dre and the Dog Pound. That's how it was on the personal side. But, you know, that was Park, man. You cross him, there's no gray area. It's black and white. You cross him, you do something, you screw up, you're out. Now, if he's not around, everybody claims that they were great friends. Everybody to a show. Some artists knew.
Nah, some phony baloney ass shit was on. Pop was loyal to this nigga, man. Put you on All Eyes on Me.
And Park didn't like Dre. That would change the death row camp.
Because jealousy.
Tupac. Because Tupac is all of a sudden now, he's just made a story. He's no right, he's no attention.
I didn't feel nothing from nobody at first. I mean, especially Snoop and Pac came up together. You know, Thug Life and Dog Pound, we like came up together. You know, Thug Life murder was the case, and I get around at the same time we see each other and try to, you know what I mean, keep it moving. That might have changed over time because that group of people hadn't been around Pac like we had. So they didn't know how Pac is as a celebrity, as a star. To actually deal with him requires more attention, more time, basically.
And here's the irony. Tupac left to go to Death Row Records because he wanted to record with Snoop and with Dre. But when he got there, by the time he was done, he didn't like either of them.
Tupac, man, is that how my shit goes down? And I'm like, nah, man. Because he's ready to kick a hole in the wall. Guy, nah, man. They kicked us out of Can-Am, 6 o'clock this morning. This is the best that Kevin Lewis could do for us. He picks up the phone, calls the office. He says Snoop was corny.
Wow.
Takes all day doing one song. He says, I'm paying Nate Dogg child support, raise. Y'all kick my engineers out the studio so that Ray can continue working on a record that she's been working on for 2 years. That's pretty fucked up. I am paying for this. Why are you guys kicking them out the studio when my record is the #1 record on Billboard? Stuff like that, you know what I'm saying?
So, you know, that to me, you know, was childish on their part, but they never feel the shoes the Pac did. I walk into life.
But in the city of New York on September 4th of 1996, there was a big problem, and that had to do with a radio interview that Snoop Dogg did. Because she asked me on the air.
Yeah, that was some whole ass shit Snoop did. I don't care what nobody says.
Yeah, I said what I felt. They're my homeboys, I love them.
Pac, of course, had big beef with New York.
Pac had a beef with New York because he got attacked in 1994, and there was a shot fired, and unfortunately it was self-inflicted.
Snoop was basically saying, hey, I don't have beef with him. That set Tupac off, and we immediately spun the limo around, and we went back to the hotel to confront Snoop. We couldn't find him, but we found Mr. Knight, and that's who Tupac confronted about what was going on the radio while we were in the building. I think Mr. Knight had me stay for the safety of Tupac, because I think Mr. Knight, with me not being there, he would have put his hands on him. He was that upset. And Pac's words were, I'm gonna cut out Machiavelli, and when I cut out Machiavelli, I'm the hell up out of here. You got your money. I don't want nothing else to do with Death Row. I'm out.
And after the major fallout between Suge and Tupac, suddenly Snoop walks back to the hotel.
When I got back to the hotel, it was a whole nother atmosphere. Like perpetuating this so it could be drama, which I still love.
Let me pause this real quick. You see the look on Snoop's face? Speaks volumes, man. And this is 2 days before the shit that happened in Vegas. He knew what was gonna go there. He knew what was about to go there. Like, that shit, like, yo, this shit is mind-boggling, man. It's like, wow. This shit was a whole play, it was a whole setup. There was a lot of bullshit involved. Like, wow, man. That's fucked up. When you look at everything. And the more, like, I dug deep into this shit. I started watching the documentaries when it came out, like 2006, Tupac assassination. And as I watched it, it got deeper and deeper, and I realized, like, oh. On the other hand, like, he's dumb as a motherfucker. He's dumb. You let these crooked cops do that shit to you, man. And this nigga, I ain't even gonna get into that, man. I'm just finish watching the video. We're gonna say that for another story. Let's get into it.
But when it all goes down, don't look at me and Biggie and be like, why is there a big East Coast, West Coast war? So when we got on the plane to go back to LA the next day, Suge didn't let none of my security ride with me. I had to ride on the plane with him, his homies, and Pop. And it was the most uncomfortable ride I ever had in my life. In fact, put the blanket on my head, knife in my hand, fork in my hand.
Stop the cap!
Sleep the rest of the ride.
Stop the cap right now!
So I walked down the steps. We meet right here. I'm like, cuz, you going to Vegas?
Why was somebody that wasn't going to Vegas anyway asking Tupac, are you going to Vegas?
He do me like this.
Exactly.
He went his way and he went my way.
Apparently the Long Beach Crips had put out a DVD with a bunch of diss songs and some music videos that dissed the Death Row organization and dissed Suge Knight.
DVD was all about killing Death Row people. You feel me? Now, the DVD was predominantly Long Beach people in it. You feel me? I'm from Long Beach. My whole time that I was on Death Row, I lived it right here in Long Beach.
You always saw Pac and Suge hanging together. You always saw these niggas everywhere together. They was like big brother, little brother and shit. And the thing is, that relationship was dangerous for the powers that be.
I remember that. Not the West Coast. I got backlash from Suge Knight, Tupac, and Death Row. And it was our last days hanging out before he got killed. So we ended on a kind of foul note.
The tension between Death Row Records and the Long Beach Crips and the Snoop Dogg Pound camps was palpable, to the point where Snoop Dogg went to the point of making an entire music video that showed total disrespect for Suge Knight.
Bully got checked. You know what I'm saying? You go out when you're in school, you got a bully. He's scaring everybody, and everybody going the other way. Scared putting their lunch money up high and they gold chain. Well, this day at school, the bully got checked. He had to put his gold chain in and try to put a cigar on it. You know, but the media didn't want to bring it off like that because they were scared that Suge was going to do something to him for telling the truth.
Shit go haywire. Were you in Vegas? No, we heard about it because they was trying to get us to go to Vegas. We was like, dog out, we was really on our fuck Death Row shit, really. You know what I'm saying? We was already
some snaky ass shit, bro. I grew up listening to these niggas, man.
We know everybody.
And now we have opportunity. The people that need to be in Las Vegas are in Las Vegas, and the people who don't want to be seen in Las Vegas have cleared out.
Because I am the LBC. I'm the king of Long Beach, nigga. I made it fashionable for niggas to bang the dub. I made it universal, motherfucker. I'm the nigga that took the set around the whole globe. Yeah, that's me.
Tupac hated people, and we were supposed to hate people because Tupac hated them.
In most law enforcement investigations, you find that the first suspects that are looked at are generally wives, girlfriends, significant others, people that would normally have a natural relationship, and you'd actually try to figure out if they were the most logical suspect. And in this case, it doesn't seem to happen, yet you're looking at, she had plenty of motive.
Nightlife Management, which Sharitha Knight owned, which was Suge Knight's wife. By Suge owning Death Row Records, it would be a conflict of interest of him managing his artists too. So he had that in his wife's name, and not only did she manage every artist that was on Death Row, she also managed Caution. She managed us.
I think that he gave her the nightlife entertainment to give her some experience, get her experience, because she was young.
Anything goes down with Suge, you know who's going to run this company? Reggie. Nope, wrong. That's pressure Reggie can't handle. Let me tell you, if something goes wrong with Suge, who's going to run the company? Common sense. Right? Sharitha was on the thing. Sharitha's on the paper. Reggie would carry most of the burden. Man, they're tighter than you think. They're tighter.
Even though she was young, you know, she had a
dirty game.
And so that kind of gave her the edge over a few people. I knew what he did when we were outside Death Row Records for years. As soon as Sharitha found out about it, something that had happened, he sent me home. You were done. He didn't play that. It was like, I guess it was like, okay, either me or them, and I'm not giving up the child check.
She had a cheating husband. She had financial ties to him. She could definitely gain from him being dead. So in all of those circumstances, there might be good motive.
I mean, murder is pretty simple. The first person you go after is the spouse or the person closest to the victim.
Just changed his ego, his temper. The women started flocking the money, and that was basically the demise of our marriage. Suge got out of control.
She went with the flow. It didn't bother her. A lot of times, she got herself in situations too.
Actually, by the time she said that, she was suing Snoop and trying to get money because she said her husband was going to kill him at any moment. She wanted to get her money while Snoop was still alive.
But more than just Suge, we wondered if maybe Tupac was a threat to Sharitha.
When Tupac came in, the picture of Death Row, it all just crumbled.
Fuck that. That's some bullshit.
It would have been easy for her to take over, but I don't think that she had the experience that was necessary to keep a multi-million-dollar record company running like that.
You couldn't reach Sharitha except through intermediaries who were lawyers, but I had documents and she knew those. I basically knew about a relationship with Kevin Gaines, so it was how far in Kevin Gaines was. Was he just involved with you, or was he really working for Suge too? And
I hate these ads, yo. This shit be blowing my shit.
she basically claimed that he did work for Death Row Records, but it was at her behest and through her. And
wow.
The only time he was ever around Suge was the time she.
Kevin Gaines. So what was Kevin Gaines doing on this?
Briefly for Suge Knight, just as approximately 100 other officers. Officers were paid $75 an hour to work for Suge Knight. I was asked to work for Suge Knight, which I declined. But a lot of officers did, and they weren't all black officers, and they weren't all from LAPD.
They took a drive, and Gaines and she both got scared.
But according to the stories that roamed the halls of Death Row Records, Kevin Gaines was taken out to the middle of the desert as a warning. He was stripped naked and left to walk back to the city.
What? Because Suge was being very menacing, and she basically backed him off.
Another motive. There's always a motive behind shit, man. There's always motives. People always got motives.
Documents, Kevin Gaines was in Las Vegas from 2 days prior to the shooting of Shakur until 2 days after the death of Shakur.
Wow. Wow. So what was Kevin Gaines doing on that special assignment?
So we know that Kevin Gaines was already Snoop Dogg's bodyguard and apparently his muscle, and that Kevin Gaines had a relationship with Sharita Knight. So what exactly was Kevin Gaines doing out on that special assignment in Las Vegas? We came across a letter that was called, we call it the confession letter, that was given to us by Chris Blatchford at Fox News. And this letter was given to him in 1998. By a gentleman who is now in prison. But at the time, he was a confidential informant for Fox News for Chris Blatchford, and it was reliable. It helped him actually tip him off to a couple of really big burglaries that had happened. CHP's offices got burglarized, and he helped Fox catch the people that did it. And this letter was alleged to have been written by Danny and Malcolm Patton. And the Patton brothers were Pyru. And
the gang in Los Angeles.
Yes, it was a gang in Los Angeles, I should say that. That the Blood Gang. And that they had mapped out this entire, not only confession that they were involved with the shootings, but why the shootings happened, what was all involved with it to begin with. And in that letter, not only were the Pattons the ones who were alleged to have written the letter, but they named a rapper by the name of Little Half Dead. You have to be pretty hardcore, know the dog pound, and know the players on, and know who he is. So his name came up, but it was immediately kind of a scoff because nobody ever heard this before. You don't need to look any further than the album cover that Little Half Dead did. In this album cover, he features a picture of a dead Tupac Shakur slumped over a console at Can-Am Studios, along with a picture of what arguably...
Wow. Who was killed mobstyle and he was executed point blank range by the teenagers who were in that point with some other relatives someone involved with that whole effort. Detective Blank stated he pulled the entire file. Wow. Rest in peace to Yahoo Fool, man. That's fucked up. Cause this man, he was the key witness on this shit.
He looks like Yafu Fula, the second victim right after the shooting, as a victim as well, being shot in the head. Little Half Dead himself is dressed up as none other than the Terminator.
Dog Pound, we was really on our fuck death row shit, really. You know what I'm saying? We was already said fuck death row.
And the story goes that they owed Freeway Rick Ross some money. At that time, Fox News was paying a lot of money, and if they thought you could break a story that would get the kind of OJ ratings that you saw, Tupac and Biggie, that kind of ratings back in 97, 98, well, maybe it was worth giving this to. We've also heard that it was an insurance policy because people were dropping like flies during those days. Sometimes you can give the press a letter and you say, if anything happens to me, you're free to put this out. There are several different points that the letter brings out. We narrowed it down to 4 basic benchmarks that we could look at to see if there was any legitimacy. The first one was demo stealing. The letter mentions the fact that there was a problem with demo stealing. At the time, there was a problem with demo stealing. There were a lot of people ripping off albums.
Yeah, I saw that all the time. I still see it to this day. When people would come to Death Row to play their tracks for us, if it was a good track after they left, we might just make something that sounded like what we just heard.
Wow.
There's a song by Tupac called Toss It Up, which is really started out from No Diggity. One day, all of a sudden, Death Row security comes to the door and they've got the master tape of No Diggity. As it got handed down the line to different producers, more and more stuff got erased of No Diggity, and then it's kind of hard to hear that that's in there.
The second thing that we looked at in the letter was actually the reference to the fact that there was an altercation between Little Half Dead and Tupac's soldiers.
I think Pac was a great man, but his governor was broke. You know, in the car, when you got your governor, where you could only go a certain, Pac had to go all the way, every time, all out or nothing.
It got to the point where I had a bail bondsman on speed dial, and he knew me, and he knew our money was good. So anytime Tupac or any of the guys got in trouble, usually it was Tupac, and then Man would have to get bailed out also, that I'd call and get them bailed out right away.
This is back in the days where we were using DATs. And I queued up the DAT to the wrong spot. And Pop, he just blasted me in front of the whole crowd. I'm sorry, y'all. That's my stupid brother. That's my stupid brother on the mix. You know, I'm like,
well, they better come now. Check this out. They fired me, but did it in a roundabout punk snitch way. So I caught them on the streets and beat they behinds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was out there to the beach, and it ain't over. I still got
and I'm going like it's a movie. My fist is coming back like this. I got him by the neck, and I'm getting ready to punch him, and just like a movie, I get snatched off him. And then it's the bum rush, and everybody just started rat packing me. And it was like raging bull, blood spurting everywhere, and I just felt my body just contort. I'd never been, rat packed before. I was just shocked I didn't feel
rat pack.
The third thing that the confession letter brings up is actually the fact that there was a bounty placed out on Tupac and Suge Knight. That's not news. There were bounties that were put on, allegedly on Death Row Chain.
Right.
There was allegedly bounties put out on that. Crooked Eye talks about the fact that there was actually a bounty that was put out. If you were a death row artist, you were marked for death.
Okay.
The fourth thing that we looked at, and this was the real jaw dropper, and that was that they mentioned Reggie Wright Jr. and his involvement in the fact that he was going to provide information as to where they were going to be and to provide barricades so that there was actually no way out.
Tupac thought he was going to a place where he could have protection, but both Tupac and Suge were in over their heads, and they were both targeted for execution that night.
Why don't you just have people know that you are upset? That's the only your freedom to give it.
By this time, we know that Death Row Records and Ruthless Records had been funded with drug money, and that Death Row Records was the subject of a money laundering investigation. The operation at Death Row Records was the kind of organization that you'd want to keep things kind of quiet. Suge Knight started showing up on talk shows, he started showing up on magazine covers, and he started bringing a lot of attention to people who just did not want that kind of attention.
In 1996, Death Row Records is worth $500 million. There are a lot of people that are really upset with Suge Knight at the time. So if you're Reggie Wright Jr., it only makes sense that if something is worth $500 million and you're tired of being harassed by the guy who runs it, why not just kill him and take it from him? Guns, drugs,
jealousy,
money. This is a really bad formula here.
And keep Daz back. Keep Daz back. I'm like, fuck that shit. I could have jumped out on his ass in Vegas, but it was killing me. But Snoop was like, hold on. Don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. Fuck this up. Fuck this up. Fuck this up.
September the 7th, Reggie Wright asked me
R.I.P.
to the meeting that we were having. It was about 12.
Deserve none of this shit.
And we were going to George Khalees's office in Las Vegas. When we arrived there, there was 23
right here, Reggie Wright
other security personnel for Right Way Security at this meeting, along with the attorney and Reggie Wright.
Which is another thing that's unusual.
And one of the main issues and the main points were we were not to carry our weapons. So that right away brought up the issue of why not.
I've been to Club 662 on many occasions, and never have they told me to leave my weapon.
So myself, Michael Moore, and Al Giddens was excluded from that because we were going to be the main security at the Club 662 that evening.
Why would I leave my weapons in a vehicle or in a hotel room, and I'm personally guarding Pop?
Exactly.
In one of the most hottest places
that's negligence right there, man.
Was originally into our hotel room. Okay, then we said, well, why would we leave him in a hotel room?
Criminal negligence.
There was going to be a lot of people, and what that's going to make it is a bodyguarding incident.
So at this point in time, all of the weapons were going to be at Club 662 left in our vehicles.
Therefore, if there was going to be a problem, we would be able to retrieve our weapons from our vehicles.
I got into a little argument with Reggie Wright at lunch over it. He said, Mike, I'm putting Frank back on him, and I'm taking you back off. And I said, Reggie, that part doesn't make sense. Why not leave me and Frank on Tupac?
That's fucked up.
I was Los Angeles County jail booking in a burglary suspect. I went to work that day.
At 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Las Vegas, at the Luxor, security was all brought together by Reggie Wright on the day that Tupac was shot, and we were told not to carry weapons because we were all armed.
We were told specifically, do not carry your weapon.
Wow.
You find that kind of strange? Yeah, everybody got to go to fight at the casino, and everybody thought it was strange. That why were guys told not to carry weapons? Even the cops that were there told not to carry weapons. Everybody was told not to carry weapons.
That's what we were told. Now, I, at the meeting, was one of the few questions, asked one of the few questions. Why would you tell us not to carry our weapons?
This is a #1.
Why would you tell him?
I mean, he's as high profile as.
See, Reggie, he's responsible for all of this shit. You had the security. Like, what the fuck, man? When you look at this shit, it was all a plate and a setup. Like, I don't know, like how far you can go with this shit, man. When you're looking at this shit now, it's like, damn, Pop and shit was set up. They was unaware. And these guys were supposed to be armed. They was should expect these guys to be armed. Like, you guys were supposed to be armed. Why would the head security tell you not to carry no weapons? Like, I never understood that shit. And now when I go back and I look at this shit, I understand why. It's a setup. And ain't nobody telling me not to carry a weapon. I'm guarding somebody that's, you know what I'm saying, a celebrity. Like, come on, man. Like, what kind of shit is that?
To get, you know, and you're paying for
Cover
security.
up.
I mean, you got all these guys at the club. Something's wrong. The pieces, this whole situation, it just doesn't fit.
I think the reason they removed me from Tupac is because I was one of the few people that wouldn't buy into not carrying their weapon. And during no part of that day did I take my weapon off. And Mr. Wright knew that. So they removed me off Tupac so there wouldn't be a weapon there.
I rode with Reggie, and as we were riding, driving and going over to the meeting, he began to tell me about how he was upset at Kevin Hackey because Kevin Hackey didn't come out to Las Vegas, and that Kevin Hackey had my Nextel two-way.
Take the weapons out, take out communication.
Should have been given to me when I arrived in Vegas.
Normally, Frank and I would both have radios, and Frank could just say, hey, Mike, we're over here. There was no radio again. That day, Frank doesn't have a radio, I don't have a radio, which I normally have, and we have confusion. So for most of the day, all this went on, and Tupac did not have a clue that's what we were doing.
Death Row was worth $500 million at that time, and Tupac Shakur most of that revenue. If your go-to excuse as the director of security for Death Row Records is that you can't afford an extra radio and that's why you don't have enough radios to go around, you should be ashamed of yourself.
When Reggie did that, and I questioned it, Reggie did something that he's never done. He's never stayed at 662. That day, he stayed at the club. Then why would he need me there, and why would I be taking off Tupac?
I didn't just meet Suge when I started working at Death Row. I used to work at Solar Records, and running around, loafering and going by lunch and picking lunch up and all of that stuff. But they groomed him into Suge Knight. The ladies would see from Suge is this nice side. And the nice side is making sure you didn't want for nothing.
You know, Suge, for a while, was set on roses
Seriously, with these savings, why shop anywhere else this
Mute. Copyright claim. You know how YouTube is. Oh, by the way, this is for fair use only. Fair use only. A big shout out to RJ Barr for putting together this documentary.
All the time. Too many. Every time she was here, we would open the door and there was some more flowers, you know, for every occasion. And sometimes every week, initially we would send her flowers. And when we were still in California, they would try to, they initially kept the bills paid. See, we thought that was Pop's house. We did not know that was Death Row's house. That was not his house. It was not in his name. From the moment we got there, we thought that that was Pop's house he was buying.
So he bought everybody a car for Christmas. But the catch on that, on the control side, on the flip side, he never put the car in your name. So if he got mad at you, he took your car back.
He died in September, October. We had a state storage company come and take all of the stuff out of that house.
He has a side of him that is his sweetest side, and then he has a side of him that he literally turns into the devil. Because he's so nice with it, he catches you off guard when he does something.
Suge had them to pack everything in Rush's house and send it down here. She didn't know it was coming. Looked and it was there. She didn't want it in particular, but you know, she took it because it's here, because she said it wasn't his.
We were getting very close to wrapping on our gridlock. We probably had maybe a week or two left on it. And myself and Kevin Hackey, we were both on duty that day on a set. And it was in the evening time because it was already night. And I got this phone call from Yasmin Fula. And she said, "Hey Frank, I'm coming down to a gridlock. Don't you and Kevin leave because I need to talk to the two of you." So, you know, probably 30 minutes later, she shows up. And she goes, "Hey," she goes, "there's some things going on over at the death row office. Pac has called an audit on the death row office." You have to keep in mind, there was a conflict of interest.
Man
that
behind the
Tupac
curtain.
have the same attorney
David Kenner.
that death row had, being David Kenner. You know, I mean, that speaks for itself right there. But he wasn't feeling comfortable with what he was receiving, I guess, as far as his royalties or whatever.
So that's the completion of that obligation as I know it. And I tell you, he had movie scripts and he was truly interested in that. People were talking to him about it.
Yeah, he's done. He was done. He was done. He was done. There were meetings with attorneys. Yaz and I, yeah, he was done. He was done. He had fulfilled his obligation with Death Row. And no intentions of renewing any sort of paper agreement.
Witness is people who had potential knowledge Tupac was leaving Death
Yeah, they look to him, or Suge Knight, or anyone like that that comes up with Tupac. What do you think was not done? Institutionalize Tupac.
Fuck out of here.
Bond revoked what's on me. They would not believe that they're killing or anything like that.
Bullshit.
They would just have him go back to jail.
Bullshit.
And humble him again.
This is how everything is being played. Leonard Wilson was a patsy in this shit. It's like Lee Harvey Oswald from JFK, man.
And humiliate him. Isn't that what they did to Kevin Gang? Isn't that what they did to Snoop Dogg?
And Sheldon is down on his stomach. And that's it. It's over.
over in the first round.
Hey, this is nasty work,
Tyson
man.
was Pac's homeboy, and to see Tyson in the ring doing his thing, whooping up on Bruce Seldon. Pac was excited. He was jumping up and he was saying what he was saying. Everybody getting excited about a fight, and that continued from the seats into the back of the area where the boxers come back in at after the fight is over. And he got back there and he's just going off, man, 50 blows, 50, man, he knocked them out, 50 blows, blah, blah, blah. That was it. That was the excitement of that fight. That was Pac's excitement behind it. Mike Tyson never came in the back, so we never met up with Mike. We ended up leaving. As we left out of the fight arena area, as we got out into the casino area again, the rest of our entourage was out there waiting on us. As we walked up to greet them, which would have been, all of Death Row entourage, along with Tupac's entourage, one of Suge's guys, his name is Trevon, came over and whispered in Tupac's right ear, because I was standing on Tupac's left. Wow. Tupac took off and ran. His governor was booked. I took off behind him.
Your opinion was about to get overturned.
And the rest of
it was just set up.
Me.
Not want to go back to prison.
I never been Rat Pack before. Tupac comes to, at this time, I didn't know who it was, now being Orlando Anderson, standing by this planter.
See?
Just like waiting.
Why don't you have to go down to a hotel that's the only your freedom we get in?
It was a setup.
Tupac had a billion deal to do. The only your freedom. The only your freedom. The only your freedom.
Pac just ran up on him and then Orlando Anderson swung back. At this time, Pac's medallion broke. When he reached out to grab.
And you know the crazy thing about this, after that whole incident, they try to make this man go lie and say, oh, Orlando Anderson tried to take his chains, which is totally false. Come on now. Come on. Pac had the euthanasia chain. As you watch this whole video, the whole video at the MGM Grand, you can watch the whole thing. They got the footage. You don't see Orlando Anderson snatching this man's chain off or trying to take this man's chain. Like that, all of that was a lie right there. Like, this was a setup, man. This was a setup. I mean, you can see Frank right here in this picture. Like, he watching Tupac. He ain't got no gun, no nothing. They already took Michael Moore from him because he refused not to carry his weapon. So when I look at this shit, it goes to show you, like, this was a play-by-play. But I ain't gonna keep talking. I'm gonna just let it play.
Grabbed the medallion. I grabbed him and got him out of the fight. By the time the entourage who was behind me had gotten there,
right there, you see Pac.
The footage that is from the MGM, everyone sees Orlando Anderson's on the ground and everybody's kicking him and beating him down or whatever. Because I knew the way through the MGM, because I was in the MGM walking around earlier looking for everyone. I knew how to walk us out of the MGM to the entrance. And I walked us out of the entrance. As the tape shows, I'm in front, Pac and Suge, and everybody is following me now.
After the beating, there seems to be a divergence of stories. On one hand, some people say that Orlando Anderson left the MGM to go on and do other things. But witness Corey Edwards actually said that Orlando Anderson stayed at the bar. Corey Edwards was there with friends, as was Orlando Anderson. And if Orlando Anderson was in fact at that bar, according to Corey Edwards, you don't think the Las Vegas Police Department would have checked the closed-circuit cameras at the MGM to find out whether that was true? Well, Russell Poole said they did. And Russell Poole said that that was true.
After the fight that occurred at the MGM, when we got to the Lexor, the crowd was all outside, all of the groupies and everything. As I walked to the car with them, the first thought in my mind was, my weapon is in my car. My car is on the other side of the Lexor Hotel. I wasn't going to tell Tupac and tell Suge, wait 1 minute, I have to run over to my car and get my gun. Well, how come you don't have your gun on you?
Reggie,
Well, Reggie told us not to.
You took us home because you didn't have your gun. You should
This
have
guy
had
is
your
a
gun.
piece of shit,
You know
man.
what, man? See, man, we got conflicting stories, man. Because we told you that. You tell you what I told y'all. And listen in the car, you carry out there with you. Exactly. There you go. You said leave them in the car.
It ponders through me all the time. What if I could have done something? Then I would have really been the hero that Suge Knight once thought I was when Snoop's trailer got shot up. I have put myself in this position in my mind many times. To say, what if I would have had my gun?
There was no way Orlando Anderson would be able to do
662, I heard
His
something
shoulder
over
was
the neck
dislocated.
tails that we all carry for security. And what I heard was, God, God, God.
Michael talks about hearing
This bitch ass
something
on the
over the radio. Well, he would have heard it over Reggie's radio because he wouldn't have had a radio that night.
Then someone else came on the radio and said, hey, don't say nothing over the radio. Which was the next tales we were using radio to radio. And I just clearly heard somebody say, don't say that over the radio. But the person who said it was not Homeboy Security, nor was it one of our security guards. It was, to me, it would be like a stranger. Someone, and the person that said that was Caucasian. Definitely not African American.
Well, no. You know, even getting that, even we were in the cab and we heard, you know, something happened, Tupac, something, it was like, you know, over the radio, over those rappers, Tupac, something, you know, people been shot. I was like, oh no, I'm like, pull over, you know, I'm like calling, Yaz, I'm like, is everything okay? And she calls us, no, go to the hospital. She told me the hospital was another hospital. And I also remember seeing, you know, Suge roll by in the gurney with a little band-aid on his head, and I was like, what happened?
They missed.
Attempt on Suge.
They missed. All of the planning that they put into the operation, they shot tons of rounds into that car to the point where everybody thought that they were dead. But at the end of the day, they missed.
After the shooting occurred on September 7th that evening, I don't understand something that occurred. Trayvon, after we were questioned by the homicide detectives, went back over to Club 662. If he cared so much about Pac, why didn't he go to the hospital?
It didn't really seem to register on anybody's radar that it might have been an attempted assassination on Suge Knight.
Suge was at the hospital, Pac was at the hospital. How come everyone that supposedly have loved Pac, other than his family, the Outlaws?
This is about selling a narrative.
Told you.
They tried to sell a narrative to the Las Vegas police and it didn't work. They tried to sell the same narrative to Chuck Phillips at the Los Angeles Times.
And they fired his
and
dumb
that
ass.
didn't work. They tried to sell the narrative through the Wallace investigation and the Wallace civil suit, through Wayman Anderson. And then they tried the last round to sell it through an ex-LAPD cop and a book called Murder Rap.
I told you. Now, let me pause that right there. Murder crap. I watched that documentary. This shit really make no sense, man. You know, I don't believe Orlando Anderson killed Tupac. No, I don't believe Poochie killed Biggie. I don't believe in none of that shit, man. I believe this was a cover-up, man. To put the blame on them so they could take the fall for it, and then they could close the case, which is that's what they're doing with Keefy D right now. He's being derailed. Well, he's a stupid motherfucker. Like, you thought you was doing this shit for entertainment. This shit backfired on you. Now you in there, oh, I ain't never killed nobody. Oh. It's too late now, man. You can't take back them words, them interviews, and all of that shit you did. You like, you crooked ass cop get you in this bullshit. Crazy work, man. And you know your nephew denied this shit. And they asking me, was you in a white Cadillac? No. Do you ever own a white Cadillac? No. My man had a dislocated shoulder, man. Come on. You gotta make it make sense, man. We're not about to be regurgitating these same lies, which is what I've been seeing all on throughout social media. Like, nah, we're not doing that no more. We're not doing that no more. Like, fuck that shit. This is the biggest cover up in hip hop history, man. See, me, I was blindsided by this shit growing up, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I did my own little rational thinking, and I realized, like, wait a minute. This is all narratives, like R.J. Barnes said, man. The narrative, Orlando Anderson shooting story, version 1. He did it alone, chain snaps. Gangs made him do it 10 times. Like, look at this shit, man. How many narratives, bro? Nah, look, like, I believe keeping you gonna walk. They don't have no gun, no Cadillac. If it don't fit, you must have quit. That's what I'm saying, man. So he better have a good defense. I think that's why they pushed the trial back, man. Need more time, yeah. Cross some T's and dot them I's, man. You better have to come up with something, man, that's gonna back up your claim that you wasn't there, and that would exclude your nephew. Because Suge said it himself, man. Orlando Anderson was not the shooter. Let me just go back.
How come everybody didn't go to the hospital? What happened? I don't understand that.
So now we're in damage control mode. Suge Knight got shot at, and he lived. Now what the hell are we going to do? Because you've got somebody asking questions, and we don't have an answer.
I had Newsweek and Time. I had all of the major magazines and newspapers coming to Club 662.
They got to make up a story. They got to come up with something.
Because after the fight, Tupac was going to entertain.
You have the attempted assassination of the head of arguably the largest record label at that time. Now, if this were David Geffen or any other big record label executive, there'd be cops falling all over themselves to try to investigate.
Facts. They don't want to solve this case because they know people
work
involved in this shit.
So then I went and to see Tupac. They wouldn't let me close to Tupac, but they did let me see in there. So that's when Kenner came to me and said, do you have keys to Death Row, to the offices? He said, well, then you get on the next thing smoking. You know, hey, you need some money? I said, no, I got money. And go back to L.A.
So Suge Knight goes back to Los Angeles and has a meeting at Death Row Records.
Suge called a meeting. All the artists were instructed to come to this meeting, and certain security was invited.
You people, man. I do this. Wow. Sad what happened in 96 and 97, man. Two greatest rappers of all time. Now look where we at. 2025. Shit is marvelous. Come on.
But prior to going into the meeting with Suge and all the artists from Death Row, Reggie met with us out front in his own meeting. But I'm going to add something to that. We were also instructed to lie by Reggie Wright to Suge.
But if I'm Suge Knight, if somebody takes a shot at me, regardless of who else is in the car, they're shooting at me. I want to know who shot at me and why.
And the reason we were instructed to lie was because Reggie Wright told us not to carry any weapons.
What do?
They lie.
They lie.
So I have, by me just looking at what Reggie told me, I'm thinking that Mr. Knight was unaware.
More importantly, I want to know how far down this rabbit hole goes.
The meeting was basically about what happened. And the artists were drilling security about what methods
we had used and what were some of our tactics.
And we know from looking at the statement that Suge Knight gave to the Las Vegas Police Department that he fully expected that Frank Alexander and every other bodyguard there was to carry their weapons.
Exactly.
So whatever the case might have been, Suge Knight didn't get the message.
Nope.
I looked around and no one said it. No one was speaking up for security.
So I'm Suge Knight and I'm asking myself, who the hell is shooting at me and why? And who's the first person I'm going to ask? My head of security, Reggie Wright Jr.
And it looked like Reggie wasn't going to say that information to them.
The driver appears to be hit with fragments in the head area. At this time, the wounds are life-threatening, but serious, not in critical condition at this time. Homicide detectives are very busy right now.
He has numerous injuries. He has multiple gunshot wounds to the chest, and so yes, that's always a possibility that a lung could be hit, a lung could collapse, or there could be other internal injuries that might need additional attention in the OR.
Kevin Hackey shows up in Las Vegas, and he's got a lot of questions as to what's happening.
I was in the hospital. His eyes, you could tell he was sedated. So, I mean, obviously his pupils were open, but there was no movement there. I actually started crying. I mean, I like the kid.
But Kevin Hackey gets into a scrape with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police when he reveals to them that he may be involved with a federal law enforcement agency.
I did work undercover for the FBI and ATF during my tenure with Death Row Records and Right-Way Protective Services.
There was a report that was written by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department about the altercation with Kevin Hackey. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department wasn't concerned about anybody's safety, but they were more concerned about the public relations of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and strangely, the public relations of the Compton Police Department. Now, since Compton wasn't going to be involved in the case for several days later, why would the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department be so concerned about the public relations of the Compton Police Department if they weren't there yet?
A CEO of a company or the wife of somebody being murdered is one kind of investigation. But now you're talking about something where there was all kinds of alleged baggage involved.
This is where you begin to see Compton Police Department inject themselves into the middle of the Las Vegas investigation under the false pretense that it's a gang activity.
And again, that first night, I don't think he was totally forthcoming on everything he knew.
These crooked
So they
cops
approached
do.
Frank Alexander to basically lie to the Vegas Police Department and tell them that a chain was actually snatched the day of the shooting, September 6th, earlier that morning. And that was the story that was concocted then. It happened that day. Nothing about the Lakewood Mall, and nothing about anything happening months earlier. It was all happening that day. And that's what they told Frank Alexander to tell the cops, and that's what Frank Alexander told the cops.
Every time I think it's over, they drag me right back in again.
And later on, when Frank Alexander is asked to repeat that story again, he refuses.
We were supposed to went down to Vegas, me, you, and Malcolm, because Malcolm can ID the person. We're supposed to send you and him down to ID and look at the person because they had a suspect. And that's when they had nationalized the suspect. And then they were going to have y'all look at the pictures before then just to see if maybe that, made your memory get better or whatever.
It's called manipulation, bro.
So you can describe somebody, or what you said, oh yeah, that's him. And so that's what they were going to have you to do. And that's what they were told them, that we got two witnesses that, maybe can help you out and put some things in the right. And plus the statement that you gave about the chain and all of that, with the additional information.
And when he refuses, the story begins to evolve a little bit. It doesn't become that the chain was snatched that day. It becomes that the chain was snatched several months earlier.
His head of security is a ex-Compton police officer. It's suspected that you have Compton gang members who came up there to do a shooting, gangland-style shooting, and yet still, who's heading up the investigation? You have a lieutenant from Compton Police. This whole thing, it smells from high hell.
Hundreds of hours of investigation was spent on the narrative that said that this guy murdered this other person. That narrative came from the powers to be.
There's a Compton police officer by the name of Tim Brennan, who is a protege of Reggie Wright Sr. Well, Tim Brennan is the first one that comes up in this investigation with the entire concept that a gang was involved and that Orlando Anderson was actually the shooter. Tim Brennan and Bobby Ladd run around talking about what great guys Reggie Wright Sr. and Horry Taylor were. And of course, this is the same Reggie Wright Sr. that the Compton Police Department says is in charge of both the gangs and the drugs are disappearing from the evidence locker. And the same Horry Taylor, that's the one that has 2 keys of cocaine fall out of his locker when they investigate him after being suspended.
You know, so obviously from the law enforcement agency looking into this, I mean, all of a sudden there's war in Compton. I mean, you know, basic calls are made, you know, so quote unquote, you know, alleged Crip members, whatever, who killed left and right. But from Las Vegas standpoint, I mean, the whole thing smells.
Tim Brennan lays the entire Orlando Anderson theory smack down in the middle of the investigation and uses a couple of confidential informants, and we have no idea of their reliability.
Oh, yeah. People, you know, embellish in search warrants to get it, you know, so they can get it. It's not, you know, in my experience, it wasn't something that was widely done. But there were times that you'd hear about it was done.
But seriously, what are they going to do? They're going to try to blame somebody else.
Yep.
And who are they going to blame in a hurry? They're going to blame somebody that they can't point the finger on, somebody that can't be named individually. They're going to name some entity. They're going to name some group, some people, some gang. But at the end of the day, they're going to lie.
Facts.
And they had to get a search warrant, and they couldn't come up with, you know, the probable cause for it, so sometimes it was embellished or made up.
That's what Tim Brennan told me personally. He said whenever they're ready, tell them that when they're ready to know who did it, who was in the car, and all that stuff, tell them we have the evidence, we know who did it, we know exactly who was in that car that night. And he's basically saying that I don't want to start dissension between 2 different departments. But he said
it's funny because everything we had came from Tim Brennan.
You can't always take what they say 100% true, because you always have to look at a motive for somebody. Why are they saying why are they telling me what they're telling you? Do they have a motive?
You have to understand the absurdity of this. The entire narrative being manufactured is for a reason. You have to solicit a response from the judge. You have to get the judge to believe the story.
Is there some reason why they're doing this? Because, I mean, it may be something other than the truth.
If they had told the judge, hey, there's just some random arm that came out of a car, and we really don't know who it is, and we really don't know who was responsible for it, and it may or may not have been related to a chain snatch earlier that day or 2 months earlier, and we're really not sure of that, there's not a very good likelihood that that judge is going to sign that search warrant.
They don't like him. They don't like the individual, or they got something against the individual, or somebody told them, I need you to pin this guy.
And no witness to the Tupac Shakur fight at the MGM said anything about Tupac saying anything, especially the line of "you from the South."
Cops do it all the time.
That was intentionally added to the search warrant to give it a flavor of contradiction and to identify the South with the Southside Crips. And this was to make it appear gang motivated.
When a judge signs a search warrant, that judge is absolutely relying upon the representations made in the affidavit, and the affidavit has to be under oath.
It's important to understand that this kind of a false narrative emphasizes the fact that there was a fight, and it made it Tupac versus the Southside Crips. So it set up the big fight.
The judge is relying upon the veracity and truthfulness of that police officer.
The statements made by Tim Brennan were not simply academic. They were actually made for an intended purpose and for a reason that that judge would have to buy later.
And there are times, and I was a judge myself, where you get the call at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning from the drug enforcement officers that they want to come to your house and they have you sign a search warrant.
It's like when we served the search warrant on my undercover operation. The affidavit was this thick.
The affidavit says that somebody got out of the car and started talking shit. Well, that didn't happen. No witness ever said that that happened. And if you really go back to think about the amount of work that would have involved, it asks a whole lot more questions.
And you got to make darn sure as a judge that you're attentive, you're attuned to what they're doing, and you have some clarity.
Well, if all your facts are based upon the opinion or assumptions of other individuals, and you have no confirmation of that by other witnesses, then you're going to go back and you're going to put your affidavit together and you say, I am swearing to these truths that were given to me. And these truths may not be truths. They're only opinions and assumptions.
For example, if someone got out of the passenger side of a stopped car and walked all the way around the front of that car or around the back of that car, talking shit and holding a gun, that the bodyguards would have reacted to that. But it didn't happen.
So the detective that is getting the information must be able to confirm or to have other evidentiary value to verify them as truths.
In my era, if I was caught in lying, it would have been the end of my career. I would have been fired. They wouldn't have whitewashed, they would have fired me.
Each one of the statements made in Tim Brennan's affidavit that were incorrect were not made accidentally. They were made intentionally. And the reason that they were made intentionally was to alter the meaning of the search warrant. They altered the statement. It wasn't, are you from the South? Tupac said nothing like that. But if you alter it, you say, are you from the South? That's not just a simple mistake. That makes it personal, it makes it argumentative, and it makes it actionable.
They can't use you anymore because you've already lied on the record, and therefore you have no credibility anymore, so therefore they can't use you.
And it got to the point where Compton had to do something.
It began before dawn. The crime suite involved 300 officers, 10 agencies, including the FBI, at more than 37 locations in the Compton, Linwood, and Long Beach areas.
Based on the affidavit and the search warrant of Tim Brennan, they go ahead and they do this big gang sweep.
Of course, during the affidavit, I chased him into a house and recovered some guns out of that house.
Looking all over Compton for Orlando Anderson. But who finds him? Tim Brennan. So they haul Orlando Anderson in, and Vegas police ask him a bunch of questions. And what do the Vegas police do? They walk away.
I just don't see the interest.
And Tim Brennan and the Compton PD can't figure out what the heck's going on. We're giving it to you on a silver platter, and you're just not buying.
I've heard many before saying that, well, we treat it like every other case, that we don't get any special treatment because he is a celebrity, but, I don't know if I buy all that.
There was an arrest made for the murder of Tupac Shakur. It was done by Tim Brennan to Orlando Anderson.
I know the people they need to talk to solve it.
So suddenly the rhetoric starts. Now Las Vegas is incompetent, Brent Becker's incompetent, Kevin Manning's incompetent, everybody's incompetent.
The bullshit that everybody said that we didn't do anything, that's so out in left field, they're ridiculous. And that's that. I had some problems between Las Vegas and me because they don't, like what I've said. Right. I had to speak the truth.
When you donate a car to Wheels for Wishes, you're not...
Come on with this dumb shit. Bobby Ladd and Tim Brennan, Compton PD. It's crazy, man. Kicking these lies about Tupac, Biggie, all of these theories and shit, man. This one right here lays out all the facts and what happened at that time. They try to debunk this. No more that, no more lies, man. No more hearsay, no more innuendo.
Search warrant. There's mention of several gang members involved, and one of those gang members involved is a gang member by the name of Danny Patton, who also goes by the nickname of White Boy. During the service and the execution of this search warrant, many houses and residences that were involved with these gang members were searched, with the notable exception of one, and that was Danny Patton, aka White Boy. It reminds me of the old statement, don't ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
There are a lot of things that no one else knows about.
The Vegas Police Department knew exactly what was going on. It stunk to high heaven and they didn't want any part of it. On the way out, Orlando Anderson says to Brent Becker, are you going to arrest me? Brent Becker says, arrest you for what?
Do I think we know who did it? Yeah.
And the further and harder that Compton pushed the matter, the further the Vegas police backed away, and the further that they didn't want anything to do with it.
Right off the bat, we're wanting to talk to the guy that's in the car with Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight. And we're working right away with that. And in fact, the night of the shooting, we tried to talk to him, but were refused access to him by members of death row, attorneys. And in fact, it took 3 days to get to talk to Suge Knight.
And here's where David Kenner comes into play. David Kenner was a former prosecutor that suddenly, for whatever reason, decided he wanted to start defending criminals, and he became a defense attorney. He was a very good defense attorney.
And we kept getting the runaround, yeah, we'll get you in touch with him. Yes, we'll do this, yes, we'll do that.
Who was giving you the runaround?
David Kenner's office.
It was actually an umbrella that covered a lot of the legal shenanigans that were going on at Death Row Records.
But understand that any shit can change tomorrow.
Compton PD had one more shot at trying to ruin Suge Knight, and that happened in the courtroom.
They was able to pull they scheme and their ideas off by me being in prison.
He had so many people shook on these streets.
Bitch ass nigga right here, man. Take a good look at him. Reggie White Jr. took the police to get LAPs and detained, man. And this was 3 days after Tupac passed away, man. Wow.
That yo motherfuckers can't wait till he's just gone for good, so they can fully breathe a sigh of relief.
Because there's two things that I always say, being from the ghetto, is that they're gonna take the money from you, which should be your own change. If they can't take the money from you, they take you from the money.
It's y'all motherfuckers that's scared of him.
Yeah. The only way to take you from the money is
I'm trying to make sure not to be the bad guy in the industry.
On prison.
Yo, motherfuckers can't wait till he's just gone for good, so they can fully breathe a sigh of relief. I mean, I feel like they're not gonna rest until Suge Knight is dead or in jail.
Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight were keeping Orlando.
I see standing right there.
Alright, let me stop right there. What Orlando Anderson was saying, Suge Knight was trying to pull everybody off of Orlando Anderson. So why would everybody still believe that this man shot Tupac when they had this man in court? You gotta make it make sense, man. Orlando Anderson was the fault. He was the patsy.
He's about the only one. He made the comment that Tupac and Knight beat him up pretty good.
And with that, Suge Knight is sentenced to 9 years in prison.
That's some fucking shit.
So the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department weren't interested in Orlando Anderson as a suspect.
Nope.
Who were they interested in?
Death
I think the
row.
answer to that question comes in the form of logs and notes that were made by a police officer on the Los Angeles Police Department involving certain incidents that happened in Death Row's Can-Am studios. That officer's name was Knox.
You're right that Knox is probably the most underrepresented character in this story because he was the very first guy to get on the fact that there were all these cops working for Death Row Records. I can remember talking to Sergio Robledo when they were trying to get, subpoena Knox to, and he said, he's disappeared. I mean, the cops have given him a leave of absence. He's left the country. We staked out his house. He's never home. He hasn't been home in we don't know how long. I mean, we cannot get him the guy we most want. And we cannot locate him. He sort of stumbled into it. He was the senior lead officer, which is, it's an elite position. There's just one at every LAPD station. He was responding to citizen complaints about activity at Death Row's studios. People were upset that these gangbangers were parking in their driveways, and if they questioned them, and they were being threatened with guns and that kind of thing. So he decided he should visit the studio, and the first day he arrived, flashbacks. He's back and forth with this guy who turns out to be Ramsey Lewis's son and turns into one of the, the best informants about what was going on at Death Row Records.
What Kendrick Knox observed may have actually driven Las Vegas in the direction of their investigation.
And the guy says, well, one of the people who sits here is one of your own guys. What? And so he follows that up. That's Macaulay. But he's finding out that there are a number of other LAPD officers working for Death Row Records, and that there are higher-ups that already know it. It's already been, he goes to his superior who says, yeah, we know that, but that's not going to be on any reports, and, you're not going to, make anything public about that. So Knox has pushed back a step, but he still is continuing with his investigation because he's got all these leads that are, he's getting into the Tupac case, he's getting into the Biggie case, he's getting evidence that there are cops, there were lots of cops, including LAPD, present in Las Vegas and even on the scene when Tupac was killed.
What? During my investigation of Death Row Records in the studio in 96 or early 97, I observed LAPD Officer Rafael Perez on approximately 3 occasions at the recording studio dressed in baggy shirt pants and tennis shoes. I further observed LAPD Officer David Mack in the company of Rafael Perez at least 3 times at the studio. Like Suge Knight said, man, you saw one, you saw the other one. This shit is fucked up, man. When you look at this shit, and when they did all this investigation and they found out all of these people were involved in this shit, they got the FBI files. The FBI, man, I watched the video where they talk about that the FBI had Pac under surveillance at the time of his assassination. So all of these little documentaries that got murder crap, this shit deeper than rap, man. Now let's get into this video.
Implication that they were, helping set it up.
The reason that you've never heard of Ken Knox were because the minute that Ken Knox turned in his reports, the LAPD understood the value of those reports and how damaging they might be. And those reports just disappeared.
Well, that was what he really knew. This is serious. He took a vacation, I think it was. And when he came back, he found that his computer had been completely erased. I mean, everything. It was blank. They shut him down, basically. They got him over in a room and threatened him and told him his case was over.
They would do anything to cover this up, man. And if you come closer trying to solve it,
it was clear he made his. Basically, I made my decision. I decided to save myself. It's not worth, throwing my own
Russell
life
Poole
away.
was
My family,
on
hurting my family. What? To
not
make
playing.
cases
Rest in
against
peace
these
to that
gangbangers.
man, Russell Poole.
One other reason that the Tim Brennan affidavit tended to gain traction was because Tim Brennan falsely characterized a series of gang shootings that happened as a war that was in retaliation for the shooting of Tupac Shakur.
Our investigation revealed that some of the motivation for the shootings that occurred in Compton may be in retaliation for the events that transpired in Las Vegas.
And in fact, it was stated later that the shootings had nothing to do with the gang war. It's no secret that the Crips and the Bloods were hanging out together and were recording at Death Row Records. But what made it interesting was on the eve of Tim Brennan telling everybody that there was a gang war, 10 Los Angeles police officers showed up at Can-Am Studios to basically hoist a bunch of gang guys out of the studio. What they found was that Bloods were working with Crips at the studio, which was no secret, but that the Crips were East Coast Crips that came from New Jersey. West Coast Bloods working with East Coast Crips. Not much of a gang war there. But even more importantly, if the term East Coast Crips and Crips coming from New Jersey sound familiar, it may be because of something that happened just shortly after that.
Y'all from Florida.
It was a criminal organization, be like officers working for the Gambino family.
Yakufula was a name that a lot of people have thrown back in our faces that we were derelict in doing things. Yafu Fula was interviewed the night of the shooting. Yafu Fula gave a statement. People say we never interviewed him. He was interviewed. And the big thing is everybody says that he said he could identify the shooter. No, he did not. He never said that to us. He said he might be able to identify the driver. That is what he said. And we tried to reach out to re-interview Yafu Fula. Well, next thing you know, we're getting notification from, I think it's in Orange, New Jersey, if I remember right.
Yeah.
He's been murdered in a housing project or something like that over some drugs. The problem was, it's a big country. People go wherever, you know, we don't have tracking devices on them. So we have to depend on people that we know we can get in touch with to try and reach out to them.
Immediately after the Yafu Fula shooting takes place, Compton police and Las Vegas police make it known publicly that the shooting has absolutely nothing to do with the death of Tupac Shakur. But that's not exactly true, because the FBI went back several years later and interviewed the New Jersey detectives that worked the Yafu Fula shooting, and they said that the Yafu Fula shooting was done execution style, in the style of the mob.
Cover up mode.
The Compton police and death row records had two big problems. Number one, they still weren't able to convince the Vegas police that Orlando Anderson had anything to do with the murder. And Reggie Wright was having trouble trying to convince Frank Alexander to go back and repeat the same lie that he
Vegas
told
was
Vegas
not trying to hear that shit.
in the investigation.
He like, listen, man, you don't want to hear about Orlando Anderson. You want to hear why you had these fucking cops working for death row. Like, that's how Vegas was looking at it at that time. So these motherfuckers at death row just kept coming in with false information and all that other shit. Oh, it was a chain snatch and all that shit. Then they try to get Frank to go there and lie and all that shit. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Vegas wasn't trying to hear that shit.
The chain snatch that occurred that day.
You were supposed to went down to Vegas, me, you, and Malcolm, and plus the statement that you gave about the chain and all of that. You know, with the additional
Reggie was playing both
The
sides.
LAPD had just come out of the Christopher Commission, which was started by the Rodney King beatings, and it had everything to do with police misconduct. So police misconduct was nothing new to the Los Angeles Police Department, but to also have it involving gangs and having it involve an agency that's dealing in drugs like death row would have made a serious black eye for the LAPD.
The LAPD was basically in cover-up mode, you know, self-protection.
Kevin Gaines was in Las Vegas from 2 days prior to the shooting of Shakur until 2 days after the death of Shakur. So what are we going to do? We're going to galvanize this into the public mindset. We're going to make sure they don't forget the Southside Crips. We're going to make sure they don't forget Orlando Anderson. We're going to make sure they don't forget this is an East Coast, West Coast problem. And we're going to do it in such a way that it's big and outrageous and you will never forget it.
Fire department, go ahead.
So basically, they killed Biggie to make it look like it was an East Coast, West Coast. That's some diabolical shit, man. Biggie was killed for nothing. When I look back and look at this shit, I just think to myself, like, yo, there's some fucked up people in this world, man. There's some fucked up people in this world, like, and the people that were involved in this shit, they got away with this shit, man. Got away. Diddy was the target. When I watched the documentary from other like sources, is like they show exactly how that shit went down. One of the cars failed to cut the car off, but that was Kevin Gaines. Crazy work, man. But this is all connected, man. It's just like, yo.
They drove up next to us and just shot up the car on the passenger side. Okay, somebody's already on the way. Hey, you hear me, baby?
I'm standing outside of the Peterson Auto Museum, the site of the Wallace killings.
They changed that.
And you know, they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Wallace murder and the corresponding blame placed on Suge Knight as retaliation for the Orlando Anderson shooting moved light years towards legitimizing the cover story cooked up in September of '96. But in a missed move, the Los Angeles Police Department allowed a rogue felon ex-cop to tell his cellmate the details of how the Wallace killing actually went down. The LAPD tried to hide this inmate's testimony because they had used the same informant's alleged credibility to exonerate at least 5 LAPD officers, and they knew he was not just another jailhouse informant. What you're about to hear was worth $1.1 million to the LAPD to hide from the Wallace family. That's what the judge fined the city for not letting this go out to the public. This is what they did not want you to hear, served up by the very witness whose testimony cleared 5 cops.
My name is Kenneth Oakley, and I was in Linwood County Regional Facility from November 1999 to July 2000. There I befriended Rafael Perez, the LAPD officer who was in the center of the rampart scandal.
And then I could see the
He
motive.
should have sang sir with this
He'd done things
motherfucker right here.
that were hanging over him. He could have gone to prison for the rest of his life. He could make a deal to get out from under that. But then he could also get revenge on anybody who'd ever offended him in any way.
Rafael Perez never mentioned Suge Knight in name. He just said James Kenner and Reggie Wright told him that Mac Day was finally got to get hit done. It was the $1 million from Puffy being Notorious B.I.G.
I cheated on my employer, and I cheated on all of you, the people of Los Angeles.
From what I was told, he gave almost $250 grand, up front, and he owed him $700.
Suge was in jail, so there was no way he could have pulled this off, man. And they try to blame it on him, like, oh, Poochie did it. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. I knew this shit didn't really make sense. Because after that shit, that's when the bank robbery happened. So you had to pay the money back to the hitman. Come on, bro.
Completely hidden blindly, right? So clearly the LAPD took it at least that seriously, that they would hide all mention of blood.
The real break in the case
this man right here,
was the arrest of Dave.
I want to give my flowers to Russell Poole, man, because he was this close to solving this case, man. If you would have solved the Biggie case, that would have solved the Tupac case. If you would have solved the Tupac case, it would have solved the Biggie case. Because they're both connected, man. You saw one, you saw the other. This guy right here, he was on it. And them bitch ass higher ups, like, shut him down. I want y'all to go watch that movie City of Lies, man. It's a good movie. City of Lies. Johnny Depp, he plays as Russell Poole, man, and he show you exactly like what went down at that time with the Rampart scandal, Biggie, Tupac, everything. Come on, man. Just don't get no realer than this, man. Rest in peace to Russell Poole, man. Like, he was this close to solving this case.
David Mack for a bank robbery out in Los Angeles.
David Mack was an LAPD officer. He was arrested for one of the biggest bank robberies in LA history, which is called
this Bank of America location.
It's been said publicly that David Mack was actually the introduction of the concept that LAPD cops were working for Death Row Records and were working for Suge Knight. And that's not true, because long before David Mack ever robbed that bank, Ken Knox had logs that clearly spelled out who was working for Death Row Records, and those logs were published to Los Angeles Police Department's Internal Affairs in June of 1996, even before the Shakur shooting took place.
They did a search warrant on his house.
Look, like he said, on March, he said occurred in Wilshire Division with Christopher Wallace along with possible great mean forger, Chevrolet Impala Super Sport SSCDO. See, they found this car right in this man garage. Yo, I ain't gonna say no more. Let him.
Bank robbery. he owned a black SS Impala, and that's the same vehicle that was used in the killing of Biggie Smalls. There's a number of clues that connect David Mack possibly to the killing.
Perez was just along for the ride at that time, going to death row meetings with Reggie White. He was pretty much Mack's sidekick at this time. They went and got Amir to get the job done. And Mack had already knew Amir from being from the Nation of Islam, and they went to school together. He was already in the stand for the Nation of Islam.
So Amir Muhammad comes into the story. Russ Poole sees that he's had one visitor, and he identifies who this person is, but he basically was trying to cover up who he was. Well, that's suspicious, obviously. And then he gets the driver's license.
That's crazy.
He sees that the picture looks a lot like the composite.
The man that killed Biggie, yo.
Made of Biggie shooter.
LA Police Detective Greg Cady came out and said that the reason that Amir Muhammad put a fake Social Security number on the inmate visitor application when he went to visit David Mack was because he did not want his identity stolen.
His explanation was that he was aware that inmates and other people would be able to view or access that log, and he didn't want his identity stolen. This hardly sounds like a professional killer.
The fuck up.
And he
Greg Cayman is full of shit, man.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're putting your true
His
date of
disregard
birth and your
for
true
truth, man.
address and your true name on the application, you have more chances of identity theft than just a Social Security number. If you're really that concerned about your identity being stolen, you should use a fake date of birth. You should use a fake address. But he didn't. He used true information, and the only thing that he embellished was his Social Security number, and you'd ask the question, why? Well, it's really simple. The Social Security number is the only thing that's not with you when you get your ID checked.
Amir Muhammad in Orange County under yet another one of his assumed identities. This time he changed himself physically. He had a shaved head now. Didn't look like the Muslim with the fade haircut anymore. He had a shaved head and a beard. But anyway, he'd been arrested for menacing a couple. He was in an SUV, menacing a couple in an SUV with a gun. He pulled out a gun. They pulled up alongside, pointed the gun at him, threatened them. The woman was somebody he'd been involved with, so it wasn't like this wasn't a hit per se. But they called the cops. They pulled him over. He had fake driver's license. He had many aliases. His real name was Harry Billups. He never really, I don't think, legally changed it. I think he still is legally Harry Billups, but he called himself Harry Muhammad. Amir Muhammad was convicted in that case, but he was convicted on I think that was a misdemeanor. Initially it was a felony.
All the movies people need to carry a concealed weapon.
A lot of the reason that he got off was that the couple, were the only witnesses, a week later, were found shot to death. It was ruled by the coroner a murder-suicide. The whole thing seemed dubious to me. This happened well after I wrote Labyrinth, and I found out about this, so I didn't follow it all the way.
Hitman,
Somebody should.
I told you that this cat was coming to kill us or try to get at us that night. I told you I had
Jill, he knew what was going on. Kept telling you, Pop didn't listen.
LAPD officer James supposed to cut out both cars.
James was supposed to cut off Puff's car, but the car just went straight.
James was supposed to cut both of those guys off.
That's why James Jill said that.
Driver, Kenny, run this next 3 lights. Run the light, Kenny. Kenny ran the light. Big stopped at the light. Big get killed. Wasn't meant for him, bro.
Like I said, Puff was the target, man. So all this shit that people been saying, oh, you Puff, you Biggie, like it. No. It was already bought and paid for.
The whole job didn't get done. One of the guys got away. Of course, Sean Combs got away. He also told me later on that he found out that James was working with Internal Affairs. He couldn't tell Internal Affairs about that, but he was informing them on a lot of other stuff.
So what exactly was Kevin Gaines doing out on that special assignment in Las Vegas?
No, it wasn't an accident. He goes, do you have any regrets? I says, yeah.
And he leans forward again. He goes, "You regret shooting him?" I says, "No, I regret that he was alone in the truck at the time." You hear that one? You did you hear that? Alone in the truck at the time. I could have killed a whole truckload of them. And would have been happily doing stuff. Derwin and his buddy Kevin Gaines are best friends and running partners. That's how Gaines knew who I was, basically. Henderson was a probationer of mine. And I'd seen them one night in Hollywood. And remember, I had long hair, driving a fucking...
Yeah, sanction.
And I'd seen Henderson in traffic. We stopped.
That was a hit.
I was going south, he was going north. He had another male black in the car with him, but I didn't pay attention to that guy. I was talking to Derwin. We were partners, and we were saying hi to him and talking to him. Turns out Gaines was with him. They were running the party. That's how Gaines knew.
Rich, you're right. And Dave Kidder informed Mac and Corinne that they weren't going to pay them the whole contract, and therefore they had to move it, and he had to do the bank robbery to get the money to pay Amir, because Amir was real upset about it. He wasn't taking no for an answer. You know, he wanted his money. And the only recourse was for Dave Mac and Raphael Perez, along with Sammy Martin, to do this bank robbery.
They tried to threaten Kenneth for wagging
Amir, which is the reason why the money wasn't recovered.
Have you had any conversations with Perez at all, either over the phone or in person?
No.
No conversations about what's going on?
No.
How about with Sammy Martin? You had discussions with Sam Martin over the phone or?
If a guy has all his girlfriends or whatever, I mean, I wouldn't want that being in the paper on me, you know, so whether that's true or not, I don't see how that...
What's your feeling about him having a girlfriend that's a dope dealer?
Well, I think, obviously, if that's true, that's, you know, there's a problem with that.
Okay, what's your feeling about him stealing 3 kilos of cocaine out of the streets and or out of the property?
Right from the get-go, detectives believed somehow Death Row Records was involved.
Phil Carson was committed to this case. I mean, he had made a case. I mean, he was ready to make arrests. He was convinced that Mac and Muhammad and other LAPD officers had been involved in setting up Biggie's murder. He was all the way in on it. He was ready to file, but his superiors, you know, basically blocked him and eventually took him off it. Wow. Just like Kenneth Knox. You know, he was right there, ready to make a case. He was told no. So Carson...
That would have bankrupted the city.
Knox to save his career.
That would have bankrupted the city. You would have bankrupted the city. Now I understand why it won't ever be solved. Because LAPD and all these motherfuckers were involved. That's it. They were involved. Just like Russell Poole said, man. They were involved. Now you understand why it won't be solved. Like, this shit hit different, man. When I'm looking at this shit, I understand why it won't be solved. I understand why everything is so covered up. I understand why they trying to derail Keefy D and all of this shit, man. This shit is crazy, man. Ain't no way in hell I'm gonna do that to myself, man. Get the fuck out of here, man. What kind of shit is that? That shit just fucked my head up, man. So many lies, so many discrepancies. They come out with the bullshit documentary, murder crap. Then they made a little... I watched the movies. It had a little truth to it, but no truth at all. Like, that was just all made up shit, man. They embezzled all of this shit. Shit is crazy.
Backed off. The first and most significant informant in this case, long before Poole or anybody had heard of Amir Muhammad, Mike Robinson, he worked for the sheriffs mostly, and the sheriffs actually handed him over to Poole and Miller. But and they said, you know, this guy has made cases for us. We've gotten murder convictions, you know, almost entirely based on his. I mean, at least we wouldn't have gotten them without him. He said right away that he knew the killer was somebody named Amir or Ashmir or something like that. I've had cases where I've had individuals confess to a crime, and I go, I know you didn't do it. I know you didn't do it. Why are you telling me you did it? And I know you didn't do it. He said, well, it's because their brother did something to somebody in that gang, and the gang said, you know, you got to make up for your brothers, so you got to take the hit on it, and they wouldn't relent. They're actually doing prison time for something they didn't do.
Time and time again, you have people who have information, they're put in a situation that's manufactured to make them look like nuts. Now suddenly they're not credible on the other side. They're not nutty about other things. Board of Inquiries, they're not nutty about Iranians bringing in 60 kilos of cocaine. They're not nuts about any of these other things that are going on. They're cops in some cases.
So I met Wayman, and I started to talk with Wayman and meet with Wayman, me and my partner, never alone. And
it was threatened.
I can tell you,
he was tampered with.
He never ever gave me any bad information, me or my partner.
One of the guys that was from Morella's law firm, they had my case up negotiating meeting. They told me if I did not do what they were asking me to do, they would switch they had power to switch my case into another courtroom, which they did. I have it to prove it to you. Right after the deposition, the guy who did the deposition from Morella's law firm, I think that's how you pronounce the law firm.
Yeah, Morella. Yeah, Morella. Yeah.
They sent the deposition within 4 days to Chuck Phillips. I never signed that deposition. I never approved that deposition. But 4 days after I did the deposition, when they were sending it to the LA Times to go to print with it, I contacted Perry Sanders and told him that I did it underneath threat and it was duress and I would never sign it. I never.
Chuck Phillips was fired from LA Times for writing a bogus story.
Trying to put words in my mouth about other articles.
Pause this right here. That Atlanta embassy killed Tupac and was paid by Wallace to do so. You see? And they still carrying on with these lies. Nasty work, man.
That came from Don Vincent's mouth.
Wow.
And then he threatened my son. He told me I would be put in the hole. So this whole thing came from the city attorney. They had a hard on against Perry Sanders, Princess Wallace, and Christopher's estate. They did not like Perry Sanders. They did not want for them to get over they felt on the city of Los Angeles.
But suddenly when it comes to matters of death row, or it comes to matters of Suge Knight, or it comes to matters of the Wallace investigation or LAPD corruption, these guys are bonkers now. Anybody with half a brain can see what's going on here. Let's suppose for a minute that we say these guys are nuts. Let's say we take in face value what these guys had to say. Before they were tampered with, before they were threatened, before Chuck Phillips got to them.
Probably going to write the story by the end of next week. And I just think that would be, if I want to be able to bring that up in the story, but it would be much better to bring it up if you were part of it. You know what I mean? If you just say, hey, I would, I mean, you don't have to say I can identify the guy. All you have to say is I would go to a line. No, because they've not even done that. And they're trying to act like they have done it. You know what I mean? Or that there's no reason to do it.
That's the question I'm not going to answer, Fred.
Before the LAPD got to them, before they had an opportunity to be dissuaded somehow.
We have been told numerous times by numerous people, including police officers, that they're afraid to come forward.
Wow. First we have to look at what they said originally, then we look at how they were tampered with, because this is witness tampering. Let's call it what it is. These people had reliable information. They had a track record of provable, reliable information. They get tampered with. Now all of a sudden, they're afraid to talk. Their stories are changing. They're not right about certain facts that they have been absolutely concrete sure of before. And how does that not stink?
And they wanted a gang expert. Because there were some gang issues in there. And I've been known and still am as a gang expert in the defense world also.
That bullshit documentary, that's the narrative.
And I went down and talked to them about the case. And I'm glad to
You don't have no jurisdiction, bro. You wasn't supposed to be on the Tupac case. You were supposed to do the Biggie case. How you jump from that to that? Like, what the fuck?
I don't understand the gang issues. There's no real gang involvement in this. And I'm basically there as a police practices expert at that time in court. And so they're having discussion and testimony about, you know, informants and things and Kading and all that, and he's up there and testifying what on, and the defense calls me, and I get on the witness stand, and they're asking me. And I said, yeah, this is how you deal with informants. This is a department protocol, and there, you know, there's a manual. There wasn't when I was on, but there is now.
You can see the look on this guy's face when he look at Frank Alexander.
He says, well,
oh man,
what is your assessment, or how do you feel that Detective Kading handling of these informants? And I said, he sounded like he was totally out of control and totally out of policy to me, Your Honor. He did not follow the correct procedure. And then he goes, okay. And then the judge told the U.S. attorney that I wanted to see the informant manual. Well, there isn't one, Your Honor. Kading's telling the federal prosecutor there is no such thing. Well, we know there is. And he said, I want that manual in my office in 1 hour. And they went and got it. And so that basically put Kading in a real cross, because he has testified that there is no such thing. And there was. But the federal prosecutor believed Kading that there wasn't anything, and there was. And then you saw exactly what I laid out as to how it's to be handled. Well, come to find out, and I listened to a lot of the tapes of him and his informants. Why he taped himself, I'll never know. Because he's promising these guys houses and money and all these things. I need you to say this, I need you to say that. And then I have phone conversations of the informant telling other guys, yeah, all I had to do, I have to say this, and that, and 400 grand, I'm going to get a, you know, $500,000 home, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be living high in the hog, I'm going to be doing it, bro, and all this, and I'm like, you can't promise people anything. You can't buy informants. You can't offer them anything for that. You have to tell them that I can't give you any, I have no authority to give you anything.
Who would believe that? So if you're going to get $500,000 if you testify like that, who would believe him anyway? I mean, really, are they that close?
It was on tape. You didn't have to believe him, it was on tape. That's why I don't understand why he taped himself when he visited these guys alone. He never had a partner with him, and he never had a witness or anything, but he taped himself. He even taped himself on the phone, and I just don't understand the mentality of someone that's a seasoned officer or detective that he knows they're taping this. My understanding is that when the case was, almost all the charges were dismissed. There were some minor bookkeeping things the feds had on Torres, and the got some real tiny conviction on some housekeeping and bookkeeping things or something, and everything else was dismissed. The murder, the drugs, yeah, all that stuff was all kicked out. Not guilty by jury, and then the judge informed Kading that
fuck keeping you over.
Want to know or see or hear of you being in the federal court building, or you're never allowed in my courtroom ever again. And made mention to the U.S. attorney that he feels that they should contact the department.
See? Look at this shit, man. Look at this shit, man. The same shit with Poochie, man. Look at this shit. To get Davis to talk, it was promise of waiver of prosecution. The charges were not filed. To entrap Tammy Hawkins to try to frame Suge Knight, Kading made up phony documents and lied to Hawkins. Sure enough, he did. You go to fucking fake ass declaration about Poochie's confession and one. That shit was never true, man. Your theory is debunked. shit is garbage. That whole documentary is shit. These type of people, they will go to great lengths. This shit is like very unhinged, man.
You know what had transpired here.
You were around when they said that.
Yeah.
You were there.
And so that's all I know. And I never saw or heard of Katie.
That's why he took him off the case.
I've seen this with other detectives at LAPD on other cases in state court where they were caught in a lie on a witness stand, and the judge whitewashed it as well, they were just embellishing. They weren't really lying. And then when it gets back to the department, they slap their hand like, well, you can't be in homicide for 3 or 4 weeks, and then he's right back in. It's like nothing happens. Like any public entity, they don't want to take a hit in public that puts the reputation or anything of the department down. And so it's a common practice with just about anywhere. They don't want to take that kind of hit, unless they have to, like, the black eye from Rafael Perez, to where in my era, if I was caught lying on the witness stand, it would have been the end of my career. I would have been fired. They wouldn't have whitewashed, they would have fired me. Because as that point of you lying, you are no longer any use to the department because you cannot testify on any case anymore. You're not trustworthy anymore. They can't use you anymore because you've already lied on record in a courtroom.
You have no credibility, like Russell said.
Anymore, so therefore they can't use you. But it seemed like nobody cared.
You have to understand that Greg Kading admitted in 2011, and several years after he was off the police department, that he personally had not seen any of the evidence that had been presented in discovery. Well, what was the entire nature of the Wallace lawsuit? The entire nature of the Wallace lawsuit was that cops were involved, and that David Mack was involved, and that Rafael Perez was involved, and that Amir Muhammad was involved. That was the entire scope of the Wallace investigation. So if you're a detective and you've seen nothing that puts forward any new evidence or any new information to support that theory, how in the world can you say you've actually investigated it at all?
If you do not include Box B, along
for you have no credibility anymore, so therefore they can't use you. But it seemed like nobody cared.
You have to understand that Greg Kading admitted in 2011, and several years after he was off the police department, that he personally had not seen any of the evidence that had been presented in discovery. Well, what was the entire nature of the Wallace lawsuit? The entire nature of the Wallace lawsuit was...
Pause right here. Greg Kading clarifies who he believes murdered Biggie Smalls. Do you believe David Mack and Rafael Perez were at the Peterson Automotive Museum the night Biggie was killed, as recently revealed to have been alleged by a former cellmate of Perez, Greg Kading? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I have no reason to believe they were there, but I don't have any equals. I haven't seen the evidence that was in the civil case, but by Lorraine Wallace regarding LAPD, I was involved in the criminal investigation. We were trying to get away from the civil investigation, saying that we have no reason to believe that Perez were there. Disregard for the truth, man. You don't believe that. Yeah, you trying to cover up for these motherfuckers. That's why you don't believe that.
That cops were involved, and that David Mack was involved, and that Rafael Perez was involved, and that Amir Muhammad was involved. That was the entire scope of the Wallace investigation. So if you're a detective and you've seen nothing that puts forward any new evidence or any new information to support that theory, how in the world can you say you've actually investigated it at all?
If you do not include Box B, along with Box A, and explain everything in those boxes, of course, you're an incompetent investigator, one. Two, you're a fraudulent investigator, and you've just disgraced the law enforcement code of ethics.
Greg Kading and some other people that he was affiliated with put that letter online, and then started immediately saying, oh, how ridiculous this is. Oh, here goes R.J. Bond again. But again, like I said, nobody really has come back with, other than, oh, that's silly.
You haven't considered
They
Box
leaked
B
the letter.
and the evidence in there. That could refute and change everything. So your investigation is not complete.
I've talked to the U.S. attorneys out here that had that Kading case, and he's like, his name is Mud.
His name is Mud.
This wasn't a grand conspiracy, but rather a few individuals that were very good at gaming this system. After Tupac was dead, and having missed their opportunity to kill Suge Knight, the conspirators put him in prison so they could rape and plunder death row records. They were able to sell most of their crimes, leading up to the murders, as a gang thing that was unsolvable. When the narrative didn't gain traction, they elevated the narrative by killing Biggie as an East Coast-West Coast feud that was equally unsolvable. They sold this narrative through Tim Brennan's affidavit, then they sold it through Chuck Phillips' LA Times articles. As the truth began to emerge in Biggie and Tupac and the Wallace civil trials, they suppressed the truth in the first trial and used Wayman Anderson to sell the narrative and derail the second trial. To galvanize this narrative, they used an ex-LAPD cop to sell it. And again, they'll do anything to obfuscate the truth and sell you this murder as unsolvable, in spite of hundreds of witnesses in very public places, because they are still gaming the system.
I don't take any criticism of the Los Angeles Police Department or any criticism against law enforcement lightly, because my family was a family of cops. My grandfather was on the Los Angeles Police Department. My father was on the Los Angeles Police Department. I knew cops every day, and it makes me sad to think that these people that are involved in these crimes have sullied the reputation of great men and women that are out there, because there are a lot of them out there.
The only way police misconduct can occur is if it is condoned and tolerated by upper police management. That's it. That's the bottom line.
There were no convictions as a result of the Compton PD investigation. There were no convictions for the Tupac Shakur killing. There were no convictions for the Biggie Smalls killing. There were no convictions for the acts of very bad people. And now, the lack of conviction and the lack of prosecution against certain individuals that we know did some really bad things are being used as a rationalization and a justification that they're actually good people. The reality is that Al Capone was never charged with murder. Al Capone was charged with tax evasion. Did it mean there weren't people that were dead as a result of Al Capone? Yeah, there were. But he was never charged with murder.
Wow. This guy right here, I want y'all to remember this right here. It's a good day for me. First Michael Moore, then Frank Alexander, now Russell Crowe. Motherfucker.
And if that...
Well, there you have it, people's reaction, man. Tupac assassination. I'm going to be reacting to the cover-up and many more.